Okay, so I want to make sure we've covered the basics now for Python installation and everything. I want to show you three different ways to run Python. That may seem confusing to you at the outset. Why in the world would I want to know about three different ways I can run Python? I want to show you these three ways so you can kind of make an informed decision. And also partly because I think two of the solutions are best for class, but there may be some people who just prefer this first. Okay, so first I'm going to show you the most, I guess, ordinary way of running Python. However, I think for some it may have a steeper learning curve, and so I'm not going to emphasize it in class so that um, you can be more focused on learning the Python programming language and less focused on learning line prompts for uh, command line processing of the files. So I'm just going to show you this one time, and if this is your piece of cake for you, then you can go ahead and use it. Otherwise, it may not be the best. So remember, you can open the PowerShell in Windows by hitting the Shift button, right-clicking, and open PowerShell. If you're a Mac user or Linux user, um, you probably know the appropriate way to um, handle that for your own system. Um, I'm just going to change directories here. Whoop. So I want to get to, this is going to take me a moment. Let me think. Teaching, CD. I have to remember my file structure here that I've got on my system. Remember, you can push, in case you're interested, you can push the tab as you start completing phrases. I do this all the time to find the directory because I don't always remember exactly how I set it up. Let me see what's in here. I've got a lot of garbage in here. I kind of need to clean up. So I'm going to go to the practices folder, and I have a Python. Sorry, I got interrupted there. I had to refresh the screen for a moment, but I was saying I have a Python folder or a Python folder that contains another folder practices that I'm keeping code that we use in class and things. And so now I have it directed here and I refreshed my screen so it might be easier to see for you on the video. Um, so we want to call that program, it calculates pi. I'm just going to get a little help here to remember the name. If I go ahead and run this, it's going to print to my shell here the results of the program. And what it's doing is, we'll talk about this code a little bit later in the course, but it's using three different approaches for approximating the value of pi, three different algorithms that are used. And they're named there, and you can see the results of these three approaches developed by three mathematicians. And this is just counting the number of iterations going through a range of 1 up to 20. So here's kind of when you've got a very large Python folder, as you become more adept as a Python programmer, this might be one of the ways you submit your jobs, particularly if you're working on a supercomputer kind of system. You really want to be very well versed at using these command line prompts and being able to submit your code in this fashion. I always am a little double-minded about whether to emphasize this or not in class, but it seems like I always have about half the class who will use this and about the other half will probably never will. And those who are going to use it are probably going to learn it anyway. It's kind of what I've decided. So feel free to ask me if you have other questions about this, but this is one approach that we could take. It's not going to be the preferred one though for our class. I might from time to time pull out my PowerShell and submit something, but I don't know that I will emphasize that. Instead, we're going to look at two other solutions, which include the Jupyter Notebook as well as the Spider IDE. These are a little bit more accessible. I think they each have their pros and their cons, and we'll talk about that in the next two videos. So follow up with that.